good people. Okay, listen. First of all, let me introduce myself because I always forget to do this. I am attorney Trina Brown. I am the owner and principal attorney of Creative Mind Law. We are a law firm in Birmingham, Alabama, where we specialize in helping entrepreneurs and business owners secure their legacy and their brand through trademark, copyright, and business law. And I want to welcome you to our June series, Mind Over Money. Like, I'm so excited to be having these conversations and to have my friends and my clients as a part of this conversation. So we are excited. So let me go ahead and tell you the motivation on why we're doing this. There is so much talk about chasing the bag, securing the bag, doing what you need to do to get the bag. In my bag. I mean, if it's a bag, shopping bag, it don't matter. Everybody always talking about a bag, right? But nobody ever talks about what the mental health, right? Are we exchanging the bag for our own peace of mind and our sanity, right? These real conversations about what the chase really looks like, right? Because there's all this talk about how everybody's always talking about 6-figure this and 7 figures that, but there's a lot of work to get to that level, right? And in that, what are we sacrificing in the process? So I am so excited to be able to have a conversation with 3 women that I absolutely adore and respect. And listen, they have had to talk me off the ledge. When I say, especially Dr. Scott, off the ledge, like this me about to jump over. And that's her saying, no, Katrina, you got something to live for. Like, that's how we get down. And so I'm so excited. Please, if you have any questions, you want to make any comments, definitely feel free to make your comments. We will try to get to your questions. You can DM me. You can post in this chat. Please share, like, anybody you think may benefit from this important conversation. So I'm going to bring them up without further ado. I'm going to introduce them and we'll go from there. So first we will have Adrienne, and I'll let her introduce herself to you guys. So come on, friend.
Hey, y'all. Hey. Thank you so much, Katrina, for doing this, because you and I have talked about working together and doing something like this before. And so I'm really happy that we are making that happen. I am Adrienne McCollum. I am a psychotherapist. I'm the owner of Inspire Counseling, located in Hoover, Alabama. I also offer telehealth to the entire state. And my specialization is working with millennial women and Black women. And I am a trained EMDR therapist.
All right. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you. Listen, she's a soror. She's my friend. She's my church, but I'm excited. I'm excited to have this conversation. Next up, we have my dear friend, Dr. Scott. I just call her April, so y'all got to forgive me. I'm real informed.
Good evening, everybody. I am Dr. April Scott. You can call me Dr. April. April, it's fine. So my title is I serve as Associate Director of Mental Health Initiatives at University of South Carolina. Although the opinions and statements of tonight's broadcast do not reflect the opinions of my employers. I just want to be clear about that. I am representing Dr. April Scott tonight. So my background is as a counseling psychologist. I also work as a therapist on the side, and I have a podcast called 3 Psychs and a Mic. So I love talking about mental health, is really breaking down the barriers of those conversations and really normalizing that it's okay to struggle, helping people get the language around what they're feeling, and then being okay with talking about it. But most importantly, just recognizing that it is okay to not be okay. And then how do we get the help that we need? Some of my research interests are the intersection of media and how it influences the way we feel about ourselves. So with Black women in media, as well as trauma. And because I primarily work with college students in my professional life, working with that emerging adulthood population is a specialty as well.
Yes. Yay. Listen, so look, we're dealing with 3 deltas right now. Let's be clear. 3 deltas on here, but boom, love, I have to bring my girl up, Liza, Dr. Bell, who is an AKA that we absolutely love and adore. You guys are going to be really excited to meet her. So without further ado, I will bring her up and let her introduce herself to you guys. For 1 second. All right, Liza.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be on tonight, trying to work through some technical stuff. Turn this volume. Well, thank you for having me, Katrina. You know, I love sitting around talking about mental health, but I also love getting with girls and sitting down and be able to chat about things that matter to all of us and matter to you all. So thank you for having me. My name is Dr. Eliza Bell. I'm also a licensed psychologist, counseling psychology by trade. I'm the director of psychological and behavioral services for the Department of Mental Health here in Alabama. And I also have a private practice called the Life Collective, where I focus on community psychology, which develops neighborhoods, families, individuals, couples, and in a way that shows that we are a collective of these things that we are made of, whether that's our love, loss, life, and everything in between, our ancestors to the future. And so just realizing what that matters and how that matters into our lives is a big focus of the work that I do in clinical practice. And so also having opportunities to have settings like this where we can talk about mental health and the needs in our communities and the needs for you all is a part of the things that make up my life. So I'm glad to be here.
Yay. Okay, so listen, if we don't use formal titles, please don't think that we don't respect each other. We love each other, but these are my friends and these are my clients. And so listen, I'm talking to them like we would talk on the phone, texting, whatever. That's the kind of conversation that we are about to have. So before we start, I want to thank all of our viewers, everybody that's watching on YouTube, that is watching on Facebook. Thank you so very much. Please share, please like. Anybody that you think can benefit from this conversation. Doesn't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur, someone that's a business owner. If you work a 9 to 5, trust me, you got some stress too. We're going to talk about a little bit of that as well today. So we are going to jump right into it. I do want to thank you. You can post your comments in the chat. We will try to get to it. I've got a couple of DMs on some questions that we're going to talk about. But we're going to move right into it. So ladies, and I'm just going to go randomly. We'll start with you, Dr. Scott. Why is this conversation necessary? Why is this the type of conversation that we should be having now?
One, we should always be talking about mental health, but I think right now why it's important is because I don't know how your timeline looks, but so many of my friends are venturing off into their own companies or they've already established their own business, and I'm seeing it more and more. And there's all this talk about getting the bag, going after the bag. And we live in a culture of toxic productivity. And I see that in the college students, right? And it continues throughout adulthood. And what happens is that toxic productivity leads to unhealthy behaviors, which leads to stress, which leads to you're not even going to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor if you're not healthy in a mental space. And what has happened as a result of the pandemic, a lot of people's values have shifted in a way that they have noticed the things that they thought were important to them. They realized it wasn't so much. And so what's happening is called like the great resignation. A lot of people are leaving or considering leaving their 9 to 5s to work for themselves because they felt mistreated by their institutions. And if that's going to happen, also a consequence of the pandemic, we saw the impact of stress, how that can take a toll. And entrepreneurs are often, especially starting out, isolated. And you may be the first one in your family. It's a lot of stress and it's a lot of pressure. And I think we need to talk about it to normalize the struggle. I'm all about normalizing the struggle so that when it happens, you don't feel like it's just you. You don't feel left out of the partying and the trips everybody else is taking.
So April, I want you to hold that thought about normalizing the trauma or normalizing the failures. I know we talked about that. Because I definitely want to touch on that. So hold that thought. Liza, I'm going to let you go first. Why is this conversation important? Why is it necessary?
I echo everything Dr. Scott said. And really because I'm sure all of us on here know that we should be having these discussions ongoing, really all the time. Don't have to be behind a therapy closed door or a couch, but that we should be having them in settings like this to normalize the conversation, but also the journey, which every human being will go through, and it will look differently for each person, but we're all going to be in a process as long as we have life. And so if the goal then is to have life as long as we can, then we want to be able to get there the best way that we can. And that's it's content, it's confident, it's secure in the best ways, even with the things that may come along that will, inevitably be struggling, but we'll have that journey that we can look forward to. So I think just being able to have a discussion and encouraging of that in multiple settings, not just clinical or mental health settings, that we are now talking to entrepreneurs. You are an attorney and you are having this conversation. It takes that, having to have it across multiple platforms and being able to say, we're a community that believes, and I talked about it with the HBCU discussion, that you have to be twice as good to be just seen as half as good in society. And that message that we had, that was an encouraging message in school, was one that also had us constantly believing, one, that we were in a state of, again, that journey of excellence that we are never going to achieve in our minds, which is perfection, but then also that we carry the weight of our community. And so that not only am I responsible for, myself, but I'm responsible for my immediate family, maybe my extended family, my neighborhood, my school. I represent everything that I have on my back. And so because of that, I feel this overwhelming pressure to not fail, to do so well, and to look like, to be a Steve Jobs in 2 days, because if not, I have somehow not made it. So I think being able to kind of dispel some of that, but talk casually, like you said, keep it 100, talk casually, and just talk about the things is what it takes. It's important to do that.
Right. Absolutely. Adrian, come on. Add your 2 cents to this one.
Well, it's hard. I mean, they pretty much hit the nail on the head. That was really good. I will say, just to echo those things, I don't think we talk about mental health enough in general, especially in the Black community. But I think it can be especially difficult for those of us who are in positions of leadership, the ones who, people look up to, who are just expected to, be okay and to be healthy and to make all the right decisions all the time. And it could just be a lot of pressure. And I know for me, especially as a therapist, I have my very real moments where I have to check myself and I have to be on top of my own mental health. I can't tell you how many times I've had a family member be like, but you're supposed to be a therapist. What does that mean? What does that have to do with what we're doing right now? So there is just this expectation that we have it all together all the time, and not enough of us are stepping up and being vulnerable and authentic about our experiences, and we're suffering. So I'm glad we're having the conversation.
Me too. And each and every last one of you touched on my second question. There is this facade. There is this thing about just it's just perfect out the gate, right? Relationship goals, business goals. You hear people talking about, I quit my job and the next day I made $100,000. Like, but then for the rest of us who live in reality, I'm not saying that's not their reality, let's be clear. But for the rest of us, when we quit our job and we still got them $10 in the bank account, it's not adding up. And so I want to talk through and unpack what April started off talking about, is this inability for us to admit and talk about failure and what that looks like, right? And why it's important for us, our mental health, to be honest about failures that we've made. One of the things I always talk about is, listen, when I first started my business, boy, if I told you how much money I wasted trying to get it off the ground, and I'm a business law attorney, let's be clear, right? But we don't like to talk about that because we don't want people to know our L's. And so I really want to talk about like what that looks like. Why is that so? And what can we do to move forward where we take those L's and they become beneficial to us, our brand, our story? Like, what does that look like? So I'll let you go first, April, and then Adrian, I'll let you go. And then we'll start you over, Adrian, next time.
It looks like exactly what you just said. I wish it could be as easy as said as done, that we use all those L's, those experiences, those journeys to propel us forward and to make up who we are. That's exactly what we should be doing, because that is success. Being able to utilize the journey for what it is, learning lessons when things don't go so well, celebrating when they do, and picking up from there and figuring out what the next step is. And that's what life should look like, not just your business. But I think that we do have this sense of, success means I'm going to be from point A to Z today to tomorrow, because we're setting goals that are not really our own. You said, how can we be honest? I said, well, let's be honest about what is it I want. When I decided to go into business, what am I wanting to do? Make a lot of money? follow a gift or a passion, serve people, be clear about it. Be clear about what it is that you want, because failure usually that feeling of failure comes when you have an expectation of a goal that wasn't one that was personal to you, or a goal that you thought it was a comparison. It was a global expectation. It wasn't one that mattered to you really. So therefore I failed because I didn't meet this outcome that someone else had, or Instagram had, or this celebrity had. And so being honest with yourself, I think too, is the first step. But just now, again, what intended outcomes are, and being real, that knowing that along the way, just as you have in growing up and anything, relationships or jobs before entrepreneurship, or just family stuff, or whatever that looked like, home ownership, if not, or adulting, just period, adulting, you've had ups and downs, you've had ins and outs. And so being able to parallel that with a business journey is just making business your life. So looking at business as life, and being able to say, on this journey, these things can happen. Like, say it up front, like, this stuff can happen. Therefore, I'm going to either prepare for it or be able to deal with it when it does.
Got you. April?
Ditto, echo everything Dr. Bell said. So one of the things I love to talk about is failure. I even create a whole workshop called How to Fail, because particularly working with college students, what I noticed is this immense fear of failure that was paralyzing, or was causing so much distress that they couldn't move past what was a normative college experience or a normative life experience. So I said, okay, we're not talking about failures enough. People think you go to college and come out with a 4.0. No, that's not what's going to happen. I think that translates into just our life. And I think the issue with failure is we think failure is a trait versus a state. So a trait, TRAIT, that is something that is a part of you. That's like a lifelong characteristic, like someone being funny, being personable. That's a trait. State is a temporary condition. Failure is a temporary condition. So once we understand that when we fail, that is temporary, then we'll be able to get the lesson out of it. So every failure, every mistake is feedback. But if we get so caught up in the fact that failure means something is wrong with me, we can't move past it. And not only do we not move past it, we get embarrassed by it. So we are not even in a position to help somebody else see that, oh, she messed up too. Oh, they did the same mistake I made, or they can learn from your mistake. So once we kind of take the sting out of failure, I think we won't be so critical of ourselves. But it also goes back to what you said before, that whole got to work twice as hard to get half as far. So that means our mistakes are going to be judged double for half of the reward.
Or so we believe.
So we believe. And and when you do the math on that, the math ain't mathing. So I got to do twice the work to get half as far. And
I don't want to do it. So then I don't want to do it.
I'm not signing up for that. No, ma'am, not me. But if that's what we've been told all our lives, of course we're going to be afraid to fail, because it's not going to be measured in the same way. So we got to do a lot of unpacking of what we even think about failure before we can move forward.
Absolutely. Adrian?
Again, but I think it's important that we sort of, especially as entrepreneurs, expect challenges and or what we might call failures, and prepare for it, because I think that is what's going to help you manage your mental health. If you are aware of your limitations, if you're aware that there will be challenges. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it, And so to expect those and make a decision that, hey, I'm committed to this. This is my vision. This is my goal. There are going to be challenges. I may fail at some aspect of what I'm doing, but I'm going to get back up and keep going. And that was kind of the attitude that I had going into starting my practice. And I don't remember where I heard it, but I remember this quote that says, success is on the other side of quitting. And when I was in my first year of building from nothing, I didn't have clients that I brought with me from a previous job or anything like that. I had to start from the ground up. And what I've learned is that in mental health, normally, minus pandemic, summertime is a little strange. You know, people are going on vacation. They're not trying to come to their appointments. And it got around to about July, and I'm looking at my revenue like, sis, this ain't it, you know. Um, but I had to take a step back and say, hey, no, you didn't get this far to fail. This is a bump in the road. Success is on the other side of quitting, and you're gonna keep going. And I'm here, you know, and I'm grateful that I had that experience because I can appreciate so much more where I am. And even, you know, just being a couple years into it, I expect that there will be more challenges. Even now, as I have grown with the business, you know, it's not just me anymore. And looking at what that growth looks like, there will be mistakes. I will make, you know, decisions about hiring therapists or about switching software or about moving my office location or whatever it may be. Sometimes it'll work out and sometimes it won't. But me having that mentality helps me when I get to the challenge to keep pushing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So listen, what I heard was, okay, first of all, you got to be honest with your expectations from Dr. Bill. Like, listen, this is what I'm doing this for. Even because I think sometimes as Black people, we don't really like to say we in it for the money. Like, I just want to help you. Look, everybody know me. I love my direct deposits. Let's be clear. Look, ma'am, sir, I'm going to need all of my money. Every bit that belongs to me, I need you to deposit that, okay? But I think sometimes we're discouraged as business owners to really talk about money in the sense of like, I didn't come in here. This ain't no charity, bro. I got like big girl bills here, right? So whatever it is, just being honest about your reason, your why. And then April just kind of talked a little bit about like, look, man, we got to rethink what failure really means. Like, what does this really look like? Like, are we being honest about the failure? How can we learn from it? And then preparing for it. So I love those, and I'm not going to quote everything y'all said, but I love those nuggets because those are my takeaways because I feel like I'm having my own therapy appointment right now, even though I do talk to at least two of y'all very often to have therapy. So here we are. But somebody just sent me a DM earlier about this, and I want to ask y'all this personal question. Have you ever, or do you currently suffer from the imposter syndrome? Somebody talked, and I think this is like this really big topic that everybody's always talking about, imposter syndrome. First time I ever heard about it, April was teaching about it at a conference, and I literally had my mouth open the whole time because I felt like I was finally being seen, right? And so, Adrienne, I'm going to start with you because I've got you last. I'm going to start with you first to really talk about what imposter syndrome is for those who may not know, have never heard of it. And then I want you guys, I mean, have either of you, if you want to share, you can, like, have you ever suffered from it and what that really looks like? And then can we talk through, like, what do we do? Like, what does that even mean for us? Like, what does it mean to feel like you're an imposter in where you are in your space?
Yeah. You know, it's basically, I'm really not good enough to be here. You know, having just that feeling like you've done the work and yes, I'm here. This is my title. You know, I got hired for this job, but I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm really not enough to be here and to be in this space. And oftentimes that means you shrink in different spaces. You're not showing up to do what you're capable of doing. And absolutely, I experienced that a lot. When I first got out of grad school, my first job, I was the only Black therapist, and majority of the therapists at the job were middle-aged white men. You know, and there would just be times where, you know, it didn't even have to be related clinically, but some of the references they made to movies or different bands or songs or things that was way before my time. And then the reactions of, you've never seen that, you don't know what that is, you don't this or that. It definitely created some of that for me, just the imposter syndrome of feeling like I don't belong here. I'm not good enough. And I will say that I probably am just now getting to a space where I don't deal with that a whole lot, but it's because I intentionally practice authenticity and vulnerability every single day. It's not something that you can just say, hey, I'm going to be authentic today and it's going to last me forever. No, you got to choose it every single morning to show up in whatever space. Even before this Zoom, we're here with an attorney and 2 PhDs, and I have my clinical license, not to minimize it, but, I'm aware. And so I had to tell myself prior to coming on this live, you're going to show up and be you and be authentic and bring what you have to offer to this space. And you're not going to allow anything else to get in the way of that. And when you are just intentional, it kind of goes away. I think it's the antidote for the imposter syndrome, to basically call out the lie and tell it what you're going to do.
I love it. I call out the lie. Liza, let me ask you this. We've grown up and you mentioned the whole we got to work twice as hard. But the other thing is we're going to fake it till we make it. I feel like can't nobody fake it till they make it like Black folks. If it's going to be some faking happening, it's going to be us. How does that have any part with us in this imposter syndrome? Do you feel like maybe like sometimes I feel like we're like pretending to just be here until one day we realize like, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. Like, does that play into us at all, into our mentality in that?
Absolutely. I think a lot of times, though, we think, especially entrepreneurs, it's so great that you bring up imposter syndrome with entrepreneurs, because when we hear entrepreneurs, we hear CEO, we hear boss, we hear bossed up, booked, busy. We hear all terms that lead someone to kind of have a characteristic of leadership, of ownership, of top dog, of shut it down. I'm the expert on everything, all things that I run. And so that already sets you up for this feeling of, well, hey, if that's what I'm supposed to do, but I don't always feel like that. There's this incongruence, from what your day-to-day looks like, from then what your title looks like on your Instagram or on your business card, And so I think a lot of times we don't really, like you mentioned the lie, that we don't believe the truth ourselves, because again, we've set this overall or global title to something that makes us feel somehow less than. And then we show up in spaces where we are the only, or you are the youngest, or you're the first there. And so you feel like you're having to prove yourself. It also shows up when you're setting your prices and you're setting your rates, because somehow you knew that you had the training, you had the ability, you had the background, you felt good about what you did when you walked out of the house this morning. But then when it came to somebody asking you for the service, and somehow that causes you to question your abilities, and you say, I don't know. So then you start giving away stuff. You start undervaluing the expertness that you do, that Bostonness that you bring to things, that CEO that shows up. You start undervaluing that, because you start to question, am I really am I really good at this? Am I really worth this? And so it is about like shutting down that lie, but it also is about being realistic about what the truth is making your narrative representative of who you are. If you know you have confidence in the things that you came to the table with, then stay there, sit at that table with those things and bring that there. Not that you won't ever not have the answer, not that you ever won't feel stupid sometimes and make a mistake, not that you ever won't feel silly or uncomfortable. But at the same time, knowing that even still, I'm at this table for a reason. We come from a journey from school, out throughout grade school and primary college, all these things where we're having to prove ourselves. There's an ultimate test. There's a paper or accomplishment that has to be made to then get to that next level. So we're always looking for that, that, okay, good job or passing score or certificate. But once you get out in the real world, no one's giving you achievement certificates or an A or a B or a C. It's just you. And so I think we are terrified once we come out of formal education in our households and our formal setting of being raised. We don't know how to then navigate what success or accomplishment looks like without that constant validation that comes through formal stuff. And so then it's just scary. I think it's so realistic that we all experience imposter syndrome. I know I have, again, being the only woman, the only Black woman, the youngest Black woman, all those things together in a lot of spaces that don't look anything like me. Not that I question my abilities, but I question like, okay, well, what am I doing here? What am I going to be able to do here? And getting past that. So I think, again, not telling yourself that lie, but also realizing that we come from a place where imposter syndrome is kind of built into our structure of growing up. And so it's natural for us to feel that way, but we got to shut it down.
April.
Like Dr. Bell just preached. I mean, I think everyone says some wonderful things. What, you know, I love talking about imposter syndrome. Did a whole series on Instagram on this. One thing that kind of really stopped my imposter syndrome, it pops up here and there, but what really helped it is once I started working around people who had no idea what they were doing. And I realized, oh, you're unqualified, but still was able to, I know more than I can do this. Here I am doubting myself, and and so it was actually getting out there and seeing other people and knowing like, okay, I can do, even with stepping out and doing my own work as a consultant, as a speaker, it was because I went to conferences that I was afraid to submit because I'm like, oh, well, I'm not there yet. I'm not there. And I finally attended. I was like, oh, I've been there actually. I could have done this. And it was more prominent for me in undergrad. And I realized it because I would not go out for things, which is what happens with imposter syndrome. You count yourself out before someone else does. And it was finally getting out into the real world, getting out to the workforce and seeing the reality against what I thought was a reality. So kind of going back a little bit what Dr. Bell said about what we think, what our expectations are, and having reality meet up against those expectations and saying, okay, well, you are capable, you are qualified. And one of you said something that made me think of a quote from, I think it's Eckhart Tolle. So it's like in the whole vein of mindfulness. This is the root of all suffering is being dissatisfied with the present moment. Every time that we want more and constantly comparing and looking towards the future, we are not being in the now, and it's hard to appreciate the now when you're constantly saying, okay, once I get this, I'll be happy. Then the next thing, I'll be happy. And it's like, can you be happy in the now? That doesn't mean that you can't want more, but you got to be able to be grateful and appreciative of the step that you've taken. And when we're not able to express gratitude for that, it is always going to feel like we're not measuring up, because we're looking towards, 5 years from now versus like, you started. You filled out that paperwork. You submitted that licensure application. Because I'm in the middle of trying to do, it's a headache. But being able to give yourself credit for where you are now, I think will help with feeling like with not feeling like an imposter.
Absolutely. And I know I tell April this all the time, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because this is how I feel. It's like when Donald Trump became president, I began to say to myself, hey, you just need the confidence of a white man. That's all you need. Like, once I get the medium man confidence, baby, listen, I can do whatever I please out here. Like, and I think sometimes we've been sold this bill of sale that we're not good enough. And it's really understanding that even if somebody may be better, right? They may know more. That does not take away from what you know and where you are and what you bring. Like, that's that conversation I have to have with myself all the time. And then plus the fact that Donald Trump became president. So at this point, I could be
do anything. And let them tell you no. Let them, I tell my students this all the time, let them tell you no. You telling yourself no before you even put in the application or before you even submit it. Wait, let them tell you no before you count yourself out. So yeah, if they're Johns Hopkins could have a neurologist position. I know very little, but after seeing what a mediocre white man can do, let me go ahead and apply. Who knows? You never know. Maybe they might see some of my application tomorrow. I did watch like 3 seasons of ER. Maybe that could work.
And what you said, Katrina, I think was very key, in that we don't have to then meter ourselves in comparison to the next person doing that thing. So like you said, it doesn't diminish because they're doing this and doing these great things or doing more. Does not then somehow lower and raise our own abilities. We should not then diminish our capabilities or abilities because someone else's journey. It just then highlights the need for us to be all on our own individual, unique, and wonderful journeys, because that way, if we don't have that left to right comparison, then we're only competing with ourselves at the next step. Like you said, that kind of that sustainability in the now. If it's just our own now, then it's not that big of a deal. But I think when we're looking at, again, oh, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. Then we're going to start questioning, what does that then take away from me? And that's not what that means.
So I wanted somebody's just sent me a DM. This is not a part of it, but two of you guys are moms, and April and I are like godmothers and aunties. So we're gonna put our 2 cents in too. But somebody asked a question about being a business owner or working mom and dealing with guilt, like right from being away from your child for so long, or having to, especially as a business owner, when you are a solo person and you're responsible for everything, and so sometimes you're away from the home. And they were talking about like what do they do, how do they process, how do they reason the need to be successful in their business and still be a good mom. Does that make sense? So Adrian will go first, and then I'll let Dr. Bill go, and then April, I'll let you go.
I think that's a really good question. For me, part of my why, I think it's really important to think about your why when you're pursuing entrepreneurship. And part of it for me, in my last job, my son, when he was an infant, he had respiratory issues, so he was in and out of children's, in and out of doctors' offices, and I always had a lot of anxiety about asking to take off to care for my child, and that just wasn't going to work for me. So with entrepreneurship, I work my work around the other things that are also important, like being a mom. I don't start before 10 o'clock because I want to feed my son breakfast every day, and not have him. And not that there's anything wrong with, them eating breakfast at school or daycare, but that's just something that's important to me. I want us to be able to have that time in the morning. And then, also I don't work at 6 and 7, 8 o'clock like clinicians who don't have those responsibilities, or whose value sets are different. So for me, I just have to look at what I value and be intentional about creating space and time for those things. I don't let the business take over my other important areas of my life.
Right. Oh, that's good. Dr. Bell, because you got two beautiful little girls who, baby, are walking in their mama's footsteps with the diva status. So come on.
Intentionality. So I grew up watching my mom work in corporate America, and she was one who was a servant leader and worked and worked and worked, but she showed up in our lives as a mom every single place that moms show up. And I look back on it as a grown woman. I don't remember the times she wasn't there. I don't remember the times that she worked late. I think fondly on the times where we had to sit in the other cubicle while she worked until 8 o'clock at night when I was a kid, like, oh, I want to go home. When I look back on it now, it just was what our life was. And so I think about how, if you go to my website, you'll see that there's a statement about who I am. If you say, hey, who are you? I am all these things. I am a mom. I am a sister. I am a friend. I am a mentor. I am a servant. I am a psychologist. I'm not these things on different days. I'm always these things. And so because of that, it's about who you are and how you are managing yourself. So I don't look at it like, okay, well, how do I work in being a psychologist and a mom? I'm a mom who also is a psychologist and who also is a good girlfriend who likes to hang out, who also is a wife, who also is, who is these things 24/7. They don't ever come off of me. And so it means in doing that, how do I manage the things that I want to show up as in a way that I do feel content and I do feel whole for doing that. So as a mom, I want to be able to show my kids someone who values life and who values wellness and who values being able to follow your dreams. So how does that then work into my work? So being intentional about that, does that mean that they'll see me, being able to be involved in multiple things? I may have long hours and that I then balance out with some time with them, or I may have more time with them that may sacrifice time at work. That's not for me looking at it as, well, I'm cutting this out or I'm cutting this out. That's just what my life will look like. So that means I'm making it a point to be intentional. Was my mom intentional? I don't know. I know she did the best that she could, and she did everything she could to just survive. And in doing that, was a great mom, a great worker, and a great everything else that she did throughout her life. And so she may look back and have regrets and say, I didn't do these things, I didn't do these things. But as the child and now a grown woman, I'm like, hey, you did what you had to do, and we're here to tell the story. So, okay, I want to be able to do the same thing. So that for me, so specifically in my life, I have to show up and be intentional about how I spend my time. And so that means that to be able to be a wife and a mom and a friend and a psychologist and all these things, I'm making time for those as the ebbs and flows of life allow, and also that I then put in place. And so that may mean that I have a strict time that I want to be able to have dinner, or my weekends. Our weekends are my golden time of the week. And so I spend a lot of times on the weekends feeding those roles in a way that 9 to 5 won't allow. That's just being realistic. So it's being realistic about what you have in front of you, preparing for that, and also being able to share space with people who will uplift you for those journeys that you're in and not make you feel bad and that guilt that may come because you're a human being, but being able to have moments of space for yourself to be uplifted and affirmed, and then those around you who will then also uplift and affirm you for the journey you're a part of.
I love it. I love it. Intentionality, building your life around the things that are important, or business around things important. April.
Yeah, one thing I want to say is important to realize that guilt is not always an indictment of truth. It's a feeling, it's an emotion, and our feelings aren't always accurate. Your feelings will lie to you all the time. So you have to be mindful not to let your actions be fueled by feelings of guilt, because it could place you in a direction or a behavior that's really not authentic to who you are. So you can acknowledge the guilt and do some exploring, do some self-compassion, be kind to yourself. But that doesn't mean you need to overcompensate in other areas, because that typically happens with moms. Like, they feel guilty, so let me go out and buy some for the kids. Let me go and let them have this ice cream, even though I know they, so just being mindful of what that feeling of guilt may need. But I think it's about what's your value around being a mother, and yours, not your mother's, not your grandmother's, not your great grandmother's. What does motherhood look like for you and your household? And sticking to that. And I love what Adrienne said about her boundaries. Don't call me before 10. She didn't say it like that, but she's not working before 10 o'clock.
She's thinking it like that.
But figure out what your heart stops are. Have a village to support you as well. You don't have to do it by yourself. But I think those values and boundaries are going to be critical. And then that support system. Who's going to hold you accountable? Who's going to say, now, Adrienne, I saw you on the phone at 9 a.m. with a client. Remember you said, because we slip up. It happens. But do you have somebody in your corner that can say, hey, I'll take the kids. I know you got this training, the Zoom, and your kids are in the back doing a lot right now. Find that tribe of support as well.
So I love it. And I want to talk about tribe. That was my next question. But we have a question in Facebook, and I put it up there. I hope you guys can see it. It said, what happens when you're everything for others and there's nobody's anything for you? In other words, what happens when you show up for everybody else and people don't show up for you? I tell you, that's a hot one right there, because you hear it, you see it. I know as entrepreneurs, you can support other people. You can like their posts. You can share their stuff. But then when you put stuff out there, you see them liking everybody else's stuff, but they just kind of skim past your stuff. Or you see them sharing other people's stuff, but they never share your stuff. Or even simple stuff. And I was talking to somebody the other day. It's funny, but it's true. They were like, I said, it's so-and-so birthday. I'm calling her name. And they was like, I'm not telling her happy birthday on Facebook because it wasn't my birthday. She didn't tell me happy birthday. I'm like, wait a minute, you remember all the people who didn't tell you happy birthday?
But I hear that all the time.
Do you really?
How do you know?
On Facebook. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think what I took away from the conversation is that person's validation meant something to them, right? So in other words, if Adrienne tells me happy birthday and Liza tells me happy birthday, that's great, that's grand, but I'm looking for April because I've shown up for her, right? And so that's what I saw. Or because I'm just like, there's 300 people who told me happy birthday. I don't even remember. But if it was somebody who is my village, right, and they don't show up, I'm going to notice when Crystal doesn't do something, or Mary doesn't do something, or Shakita or Christy. These are my people. April, Jasmine. I'm going to take real good notice on them because these are my people. And so I guess my question is, like, in doing that, because you talked about village, and she was saying this, I'm gonna give you guys to answer her question. What happens when that happens? When they don't show up, when they're not saying happy birthday, and I'll post it one more time so you can read it. What happens when you're showing up for everybody else and nobody's showing up for you? Like, what should they do? I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll let you go first. You look like you leave me to say it. Go ahead.
So one, I'm gonna say stop.
Yeah.
Now that's easier said than done, but so stop. Two, anytime you use not you, Dorothy, but in general, you hear yourself using words like everything, nobody, that's extreme language, and it's probably not true. Doesn't mean it doesn't feel that way, but if you do a little bit of digging, you probably can find maybe one or two who is there for you, but it may not be the majority or may not be who you're looking for, so it feels like nobody. So I would say shift the perspective a little bit and see if there's anybody you're discounting because they're not who you were looking for. So can you focus on who is showing up, and can you communicate to the people who are not showing up? Because we sometimes don't tell people that we miss their presence and they don't realize it. So I try to operate from the perspective that people are doing the best that they can, and they are not intentionally trying to hurt me. So I'm going to let you know, like, Dr. Bell, I really wanted you to show up to my event, and it kind of hurt my feelings when you don't show up. And if they continue to not show up, okay. But I got to at least give Dr. Bell the opportunity to know that I was hurt, to know that I wanted her there. So I'll leave it there.
That's exactly what I was going to echo. I was itching to echo, say what you want. At some point, we were told we could not share the desires of our heart unless they were in prayers. And that is a lie. I mean, you can show up and demand, speak, request gracefully, however you want to do it. You have the full right, permission to say what it is that you need and want from people who you share time with, space with, and heart and energy with. Tell these friends if you felt like you said, start with what Dr. Scott said, where you then kind of actually do some identification of the truth, which is who is in your life and who am I missing because I'm looking for somebody else. And then do that first. But then the ones who you do identify as not being there, talk to them and ask them to show up for you. And if that doesn't happen, then you may want to reevaluate your village. But at the same time, you have to start where you may be lacking in that communication, which I can already go ahead and tell you, we probably are under communicating in most situations. And so if you just start with, again, being truthful with yourself about who is there for you, what does showing up for you mean? What are you looking for? Does social media posts equate showing up, or does it mean that someone's there when you need them? Does it mean that they're coming to the things that are important? Does it mean they support your business? What does that mean for you? Show up means different things to different people. And so you have to be honest about what that looks like for you. And then identify those folks in your life who you do look to show up for you because they mean a lot to you. Their support is important to you. And then talk to them, because I do believe, like you said, I go in with believing that people have good intentions until they show me that they do not. And that's usually not the case. I start with the good. So if that's the case, I'm going to believe you know you're doing this. And because you may have a lot of things going on in your life, you may not realize that I'm not being supported in the way that I love you and would want you to do for me. And so I'm going to discuss that with you. I'm not going to be afraid to have that conversation. So it starts with working up the nerve to talk about what it is that you want and being honest about that.
Okay. Adrian, I'm going to let you answer this question 1 second. You know what y'all said, the ones that show up may not be who you're looking for. It reminds me, y'all know I have to have a story and a joke, but it reminds me of like when you were dating back in the day and the ones that you won't when calling and texting, and then be that one that you ain't
the friend zone person.
You like, hey, why are you a mess? Why are you ringing my phone? You ever looked at your phone and be like, oh, you're calling again? That's not the
you
one
get dressed up to go to the club and they don't even be there.
Yeah,
wear this outfit again.
The one you checking for ain't checking for you. And I think sometimes in our friendships, we put value in people who really aren't. We almost lose the people who are actually showing up for us. Adrian, I'm gonna let you jump in on that.
I don't have anything else to say. Y'all killed that. Y'all killed it. I'm telling you, because it really is like Dr. Scott said. Stop. Boundaries. And, to echo what Dr. Bell said, is reevaluate your village. I tell my clients a lot of times, create a space. If all of your family is sick and not able to show up for you in the way that you need them after you've communicated and set your boundaries, you have to go and create that in other spaces. That's all I'm gonna say.
It parallels the entrepreneurship journey. Be open to the process being different than what you've ever experienced. We're not a no new friends or no new networks type of people, because what that does is then make us create a narrative that if you haven't been down for me since I was, knee high from whatever the phrase, and you haven't been down for me since the neighborhood or since elementary school, or my family who I've known my whole life, then I don't have anybody else for me, because y'all are supposed to be the ones who do all these things. And that's not true. It's not true. We're all people that, again, build as we climb. And so I think that if we're doing that accurately, we're open to the process of being able to, one, evaluate what support looks like in different seasons of our life, who maintains throughout those things, and how we add as we need. Because again, we're doing things that build us as individuals, but also as business owners. So I think it's about just being honest, but also evaluating your needs and expressing them.
Can I add?
Yes.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So switching this to even the entrepreneur angle is figure out who your demographic is. Because the people you may be looking for to support you may not be really who your target is. And ask, especially if we're talking about business, like why are my friends not supporting my business? Why my family? Are they your target demographic? And maybe ask them like, hey, I noticed, and you can make it some feedback. So maybe they're saying, I don't really think your product is doing X, Y, and Z, or I didn't really like this. And so it could be feedback that you can use, but also from the perspective of business, focus on your customer, understand your client base, understand who is using, and focus on that so you can enhance that area instead of looking at who's not showing up.
I love it. And your
family and friends may not even be who you're supposed to be focusing on.
Right. And your family and friends can buy a product or support you just to make sure that you're getting a sale or whatever that looks like. But that's not a customer of yours. That's not going to be someone who you're building a community of long-term revenue for anyway. So it's not discounting that support, but you really don't want to have one-timers or hey, good job, here's some money your way for whatever you're doing, whatever you got going on right now. No, it's about literally building a business and a brand. So you want to make sure you're targeting those people who will be long-lasting consumers of your business or your product.
Absolutely. And I think and I don't remember which one of you, because y'all all preaching, but I think the key takeaway for me is ask, communicate, because I know when I started my YouTube channel and I had like 5 people. So I started texting everybody. I know all y'all got them. I was like, hey, can you subscribe to a bunch of people? Were like, girl, absolutely. I love it. I didn't know you were doing this, because honestly, people weren't trying to ignore the post. Everybody ain't on Facebook all day. Everybody's not on Instagram all day. Sometimes you got to reach out and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Do you mind supporting me in that? And I don't know why we feel like, because, we've all done it. Sometimes we'll fall out with people in our tribe because maybe they hadn't called us back or they didn't do anything. And it's like, but did you just say, like, have you graced them? Some people are mothers. Some people have family. We're not in college anymore where we can have party all night and talk all night. Some of us are busy, but I wonder why we don't communicate, or what stops us from communicating, saying, hey, Liza, I really would love to talk to you. Can we plan to talk, Saturday at this time? Are you available? Like, why can't we? Why is it, well, she ain't called me, I ain't calling her? Like, why is that our mentality? Like, what is it in us that makes us feel like we can't tell somebody, I need you. I need your presence here?
It's fear of vulnerability. That requires
absolutely.
That requires a great deal of vulnerability to say, I was hurt by that, or I need you in this way, and fear of rejection or abandonment or whatever the case may be. It boils down, in my opinion, to fear.
And just what we started talking about with failure and imposter syndrome. If I have to ask my friends or supporters or future customers, clients to follow me or support me in some way, that must mean I'm not doing very well because I had to beg or ask for support. When, again, it's this vicious cycle that we're creating, when, if anything, like you said, everybody doesn't do everything. Everybody's not on Facebook. Everybody's not here. So if I'm asking, hey, you might want to follow my YouTube page. It'll give you updates on what I have going on. And I go, sure, because I don't have a problem doing it. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. I'm building my network, and I'm also building relationships. So if anything, I'm doing a much better service than just sitting back and saying, you know what? Nobody wants to support. Nobody wants to follow me. Nobody support. And that's what's going to happen. Katrina, what you mentioned, it's the opposite is what happens. We feel like we put all this work into this YouTube page. We put all this effort into, we know how many hours we spent working on that YouTube page. Yep. And then a month later, if I don't have 200,000 followers and views, you know what? People just hate, people don't want me to be successful. People don't, nobody wants to support me. And again, I'm saying it in sarcasm, but we do feel like somehow it's a reflection on our hard work. It's that we didn't do good enough. We weren't popular enough. We weren't somehow enough. When if we just started with the basics, hey, who am I targeting? Let me reach out to these folks and say, you know what? I have a YouTube page and I'm talking about this and this every day and these things going on. You might want to follow it because you've been looking for an attorney, or you've been looking for this, or you've been looking for that. And then again, you're building network, relationships, and clients in a way that's so much more authentic and rewarding to yourself.
Absolutely. I love that you said it. I mean, snaps, clap, somebody get the collection plate. All three of them deserve the offering today. Like, will there be one? Will there be one? It's almost like when you think about it, it's like there's so much pride sometimes in entrepreneurship. And it's not that you can't have pride, but sometimes it's not the type of pride that we need. It's the ego side of it, right? That we feel like, well, if they want it, they'll come. If you build it, they'll come. Not all the time. Sometimes you got to do it the old-fashioned way and beat the pavement. Sometimes you got to send out emails. Sometimes you've got to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Here's where I'm going. But I also find that just because people don't like it doesn't mean they're not watching. Right? They're gonna comment. Everybody's not gonna like it. They may not purchase from you that time. I've had people that I talked to last July in the middle of a pandemic about a trademark. And sis called me 2 months ago and was like, hey, you remember our conversation? I'm ready to purchase now. I'm ready to buy my trademark. So what I'm saying is that it's the consistency, it's showing up, it's doing what you need to do, because as long as you keep putting it out there, the person that needs it will get it. And I think sometimes if like Lassa said, if it's not 200,000 people in an hour, then this ain't for me. But that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes it's just consistency. Sometimes it's showing up even when nobody else is there with you.
Because somebody may not like it, but that same person is referring you to other people who've asked for a trademark attorney. So you know Absolutely. What I'm saying? They may not be the one on their hallelujah and everything that you post, but they definitely have added you to their list of people who they consider to be experts in the field. And so I think it's just thinking about, again, that consistency and realizing that your pride can keep you from a lot of open doors that are waiting on the vulnerability you bring as a human being, as whatever those things that make you unique. Adrienne talked about it, but those things that make you unique and those things that allow you to show up in the way you do, if you stop muting those things and actually opening the door for those things to show up, that pride will be lessened and lessened and lessened. I think you'll become more confident in the facts and not just those things that hinder you or kind of like dampen you.
And being honest, and we got to be honest when it's our ego too. Like, and I think I was like kind of reflecting on this a couple of days ago that we got to be comfortable with the dark parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that ain't quite healed or that we still working on or that we know can get us in trouble. So you need to recognize when it's ego speaking and when it's pride speaking, so you can talk back to it. So it's not a bad thing to have an ego. It's not a bad thing to be prideful. It becomes damaging when you allow it to lead you into decisions that are going to harm you in the end. So as I think Shanetta, the comment said, ego will get in the way and block you. Absolutely. So one of the quotes, when I feel myself getting like, uh-oh, this person is doing better than me. I need to be on their level. What are they doing? And her name is Francesca Ramsey. She's a blogger, a writer. And she said what she had to learn, instead of hating, study. Instead of hating on that person, instead of being jealous, study. What are they doing? What can you learn from them? What's a strategy? Is something that they can, again, just study so that you can kind of quiet that ego and not making it a competition thing. We're not in competition with one another. So we talked about this before about, I think some of it has to do with just being confident in your abilities and your talent and knowing nobody can do it like you. Even if it's 50 people in the same 50 million people. You are the only you, and being confident and knowing that that is what you were put on here to do. That is your skill set. I don't care how many degrees they have, how many letters behind their names. You have to know that you are the only one that can do it your way. And the people that you are meant to reach, you'll reach, because the best lane to stay in is your own. That's the most uncrowded lane. You're not going to run into anybody. Stay in your lane. Focus on your race. Yes, instead of hating, study. Francesca Ramsey. I can't even take credit for that. But I keep it in my head.
And further highlight to, like you said, be aware of those dark places and be honest with those, because I think that sometimes we'll chalk everything up to a hater when we realize that we probably did not work as hard, or we did not spend as much time as we should have on certain things. And so if I need to spend more time on marketing or more time in preparing my materials, I got to be truthful about that. You know what? I did not really prepare for this expo that came up or this workshop, because so when someone else may have gotten extra business from that opportunity, you can't always look up to, well, that ain't my moment. That's not
look
my
at the devil. That ain't nothing but the devil.
Look at it, baby. No, what it is that sometimes be able to examine yourself, examine the work that you do, and again, know that you have to work hard. With all the confidence, with all the security, education you have, that's wonderful. But just know the reality is, as a business owner, entrepreneur, even as a 9-to-5 worker, you have to work hard. You will have to work hard to get things that you, and the harder you work, or the smarter, harder you work, rather, whatever that looks like, it's going to take some effort. It's going to take a lot of effort, and so knowing that if there's times where you're not putting forth effort that actually results in you missing some opportunities, then that's the reality too. And so if you then know that if you can be open about the ups and the downs, and know that sometimes I'm chilling, I should be doing this, but I value this brunch a little bit more, and that might mean I miss this I'm going to miss this next situation, then that's what it, and be okay with that. I know I am. I'm not going to sign up for everything. And that way I can enjoy some things that might mean that this month the money gonna be a little lower because I spent a little bit more time in this area, but I'm still feeding myself. I'm still feeding the things that make me who I am and make me happy. So I feel like that's all gain, but I think you have to be honest about that too. So it's just about being, again, your narrative is your own, telling your story in a way that is real. You're looking in the mirror at yourself and what's in front of you, and being able to move from there.
So I have 2 more questions, because I know y'all know I be trying to keep it to the hour, but look, y'all know how I am. We got 2 questions I gotta ask. One of the things I was thinking about as you guys were talking about this subject and talking about, especially April, when you pointed out knowing the dark sides, being okay, and then Liza kind of talked about, hey, look, know what you exchange it for. No, I remember I was driving down the street talking to my sister on the cell phone. And my sister is who I call, you ever hear me talk, I'm always talking about my sister is my great equalizer. And I was on the phone with her driving to a job where I was working for Satan's oldest sister, the one who taught him everything he knows, like the one who schooled Satan on how to be evil, hateful, and ugly. That's who I was working for, right? And so I'm on my way to a job that I hate, working for Satan's oldest sister. And I'm talking to my sister on the phone, and I see somebody who I went to law school with has this billboard up, right? And I remember saying, I don't know, whatever I said, I didn't mean to come off as hate. But this is what my own blood sister, not no sorority, my sister, who I shared a twin bed with, the homegirl, said these words to me. She said, Katrina, she said, you cannot hate on somebody who is willing to do the due diligence that you will not. Those were out of her mouth. Like, and I remember, you know how when you don't want to hear something, you be like, well, all right now. I'm gonna it's winding up. It's winding. Oh, all right, then I'm at work now. I'm gonna call you back. But I remember I called her back later on that day. And I said, thank you. That was exactly what I needed. She said, you cannot hate on somebody that's willing to do the due diligence that you are not willing to do. And baby, from that day forward, it's been running ever since, because like Liza, once you start realizing what it is, it may be because you're lazy. It may be because you're not putting in the work that they're putting in. That's why you're not getting what they got. And so anyway, so that's the question. Here's the question. How important is a tribe in your entrepreneurship, but just in life in general? How important is your tribe, and how do you know when it's time to like find a new one, or if you need to reevaluate the current ones that you have? Like, how do you balance that tribe? What does that look like? So, Adrienne, you want to go first?
Sure. So it's very important. I don't think I could do what I do without a tribe, professionally and personally. You know, my family supporting me and being there when I need them. So for example, tonight, you know, my tribe stepped in and I know that my child is okay. I know that things are still going smoothly. I wouldn't be able to do this if that weren't the case. And the same is true professionally. Being able to, you know, entrepreneurship, when you're working for yourself, it can get pretty lonely, you know, and you might need to call somebody and be like, girl, I just had the worst day ever. Let me tell you what happened. I had this client, this happened, da 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 da, da, you know, and I'm through. And for somebody to be able to kind of hold the mirror up to say, well, when is the last time you took care of yourself? When is the last time you took off? When is the last time you da 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 da? And make you see yourself and adjust. I don't think you can run a business successfully without a tribe. And, you know, that even goes as far as within the business. We can't do everything. You may have to outsource some stuff. You may have to hire contractors, employees, so that you're not having to do it all. And that can also be a form of a village, because let me tell you, Inspire Counseling is my other baby, you know, and you know, there is a certain level of trust that I need to have for you to be doing my billing, you know, or whatever it is that you're hired to do. So you know, and you know, I couldn't grow and I couldn't be effective if I had to, or if I chose to do it all.
I love it. Excellent, excellent. Liza.
So if you go on my Instagram or my website, you'll see that I use the moniker, the village psychologist. The village, our communities are very important to me as a practitioner, but also in life. I believe that we are a collection of the things that we fill our lives with and our space with. And so you think about a village, like you mentioned the word, it's trust. It's a trusted place. The village doctor, the village this. These are the places you could go to in your community, whether it was that corner store where they had the lady who sold the bebops or freeze cups or whatever you called them, or the candy lady, or the dentist everybody went to, or the school or the rec center. Those are places that we trusted to be a space that was safe, that uplifted us, that we could go and get good service or whatever that was. We built these communities. And when you don't have that, you're constantly in a place where you are seeking a space of fear or protection, and you're not able to be vulnerable, where you don't feel trust or safety. And so it's really, when you think about a tribe, it can be, your village can be persons, places, or things. It doesn't have to be just friends. It's not building a bunch of friends in your life. It's about building a community of trust around you that continues to kind of help you keep going. And so that may be that you have to reestablish hobbies that you let go probably when you were in high school. And so if you like to read, it's about being able to reestablish reading as a habit. If you like to do certain things, I used to like refinish wood. Ironically, like I used to refinish old wood products when I was in college. And it was a very peaceful activity for me. And when I reestablished that like a couple of years ago, it was like, wow, I remember how much this brought me joy. So finding these spaces that then bring you that sense of, again, trust and energy. So if that means your network of people in your life, like you said, Adrienne, about finding people that can kind of be an outlet for you or a source of support when you're going through the journey, that's great too. But it's identifying what it takes for you to keep going. And how to do that is identify whatever you've let go over the last 10 years. Think about things that you did 10 years ago that were fun or exciting. Start there. Think about people who you engaged with that were fun and exciting and supportive. Not the actual person, but what they brought to the table. So who was that? A girlfriend? Was it a family member? Was it a person in your professional network? Go back to those places. Start looking at professional colleagues that you can look to be a support network. Reestablish hobbies. Find spaces that you can go, whether it's places, home, other homes, family home, restaurants, locations, parks, that then bring you that same sense of joy and support, and keep them in regular rotation in your life. That's what a tribe looks like. Regular rotating things that bring you support, where you feel safety, and trust. And that way you will be, it helps you with confidence, security, and also helps you to feel more successful as well.
I love it. That's that is so good. I didn't think about a village being something other than a person. I love that you brought that part to the table and then gave us a way to look at it. So yeah, Liza, that was excellent. That's for the money right there. April.
They hit it. They hit every point. All I'm going to say is for everyone's homework, go and read the lyrics to Lean on Me by Bill Withers. Not listen to the song because you might miss it. Read the lyrics, and that's going to tell you everything you need to know about why you need a tribe and the type of tribe you need.
I love it. I love that. First of all, we all love the song, but I love you said read the lyrics too. Because sometimes, it is finding those things that we connect with, those words that we connect with. There, sometimes you listen to songs, you listen to music, and they take you to a different place. So I love that you share that as well. So my final question, and I think this is really big for entrepreneurs and especially just maybe Black women, especially. One of the things that I find as an entrepreneur is like sometimes when something good is happening for you, you almost feel like you don't want to share it publicly because people have labeled it as bragging. Right. So if you get a new car and you post your new car, sometimes, I know people who be like, girl, I ain't posting my new car on there because folks gonna think I'm trying to show out, I'm bragging. Or, you people, everybody accepts your engagement. We're okay with that, right? People have accepted engagement, but whatever, you posting a picture, you hear people, people get afraid to really talk about their accomplishments. Because sometimes, and I think a lot of times as Black people, we've taught from, not to brag, be humble, be humble, be humble, be humble. What does that even look like? Like, when is it bragging and when is it like, how do we find balance to be excited and boastful, not necessarily boastful, maybe that's the wrong word, but to be able to put out what is happening good in our lives. Like where is there a balance for that? Does it even matter? Like, how do we deal? I think that for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's walking that line of not trying to show out, but really talking about the wins as well, right? What does that look like? So I'll start with you, April.
So I think it's Kendrick Lamar. And please correct me, help me out with the lyric. I can't be humble just because you're insecure, or it's something, and it may be in the song "Be Humble." I think as women, especially as Black women, especially if you've been brought up in the church, you have heard sermons about humility to the point where you believe that to brag, or not even brag, let's even get rid of that word, to speak about your accomplishments is somehow an affront to God, or you're being boastful. And I think some of that is a real is part of intergenerational trauma, because Black people did have to shrink themselves to survive. Right? Black Wall Street was because white people were jealous of how wealthy Black people were, and they killed them. And that happened all the time. Anytime a Black person had something that white people wanted, they could lose their livelihood. So it became a survival tactic for them to downplay their achievements. And that got passed down generation to generation, where we now call it humility, when it's like, no, this is trauma. So being proud of what you are doing, especially as women, because typically the only time we are celebrated is when you have a child on your wedding, and maybe if you're a birthday person. So if you're not having those things, when do you get celebrated? When do you allow people to pour into you to say good job? So I'm all about take the risk of being cocky, because chances are you're not being proud enough, and you'll find your balance somewhere in between. If you're doing it for the sole purpose of validation, then that's probably something that needs to be worked on. But if you're like, no, I'm really proud of what I did and I want to share it, do it. And I had a moment this week where I almost didn't share something. I was like, oh, because then people gonna think, and I was like, so okay, they'll think that whatever. So like I literally had to tell myself, you don't care, April. And I went ahead and did it. I gotta find this lyric. So
look it up, and then I think you hit it spot on. Adrian, your thoughts?
I think it boils down to self-awareness and knowing your journey, and kind of to go with what she said. What is your intention behind sharing that you got a new car? or that you bought a bigger house, or that your business is expanding, or you, whatever the case may be, what is your intention for sharing? Is it to be boastful and or for validation? Then yeah, that's an issue. But if it's truly be coming from a place of I'm proud of myself, I'm celebrating this win for myself, and I want to share it with my village, then don't worry about the people who might think that you're doing it to brag, or to put them down, or whatever the case, because that's their stuff. We don't tote other people's stuff.
Think about before I'm always like back to the basics. I'm always like, let's start from the square one. So like before social media, how did we celebrate accomplishments? Well, a couple of places. So we had actual tribes at some point, possibly. I mean, that could have been an issue for some for years, but we had actual tribes. And when good things happened in our lives, that may have been again, person, places, or things where those things were celebrated and shared. As social media kind of came into the picture, it became the platform to highlight everything, that was going on. And not that you don't have private groups that you're doing things with, but some in the emergence of this global social culture start to shrink these more personal, intimate groups to where the social culture became the only source of validation that you may have. And so for that reason, it ties back in everything we said about imposter syndrome, the failure, where if I'm posting these things, I may not be intentionally thinking I'm bragging or being boastful, but I do want people to think that I'm doing well because I'm doing well. And that might then equate to my success for what I'm working on. If I'm showing them that I'm getting large clients and big jobs, it means I'm successful at what I'm saying I'm an expert at. And so I think that validation is not always unhealthy, but it does sometimes highlight that we don't really have these more intimate places where that should be an ongoing uplifting and affirming. So it does circle back to find a reason, like you said, Adrian, why you're doing it. But then also, if you get all that figured out and figured out that you have a foundation and you build that, then know it's okay to also highlight good things in your life. And so that there's nothing wrong with doing that. And it does not have to be coupled with the struggle. Because as Katrina, you were talking about, all I could hear was when you said about, I forgot what the example you gave about the what you wanted to highlight. But if it doesn't come with, y'all know where I came from. I've had my heart broken 25 times. So then if I tell you how much I've been dogged out by men and I've had this bad life, so when I then highlight my marriage, y'all will be so happy for me. Or if you show, like I'll tell you, I had a journey, I talk about it in my own personal story about how my journey through education was not always excellence. I was mediocre when it came to like grades, most of my journey. And so when I share that story, coupled with the educational accomplishments, oh yeah, people with you then because they know you came from a mighty long way. You earned that. You really earned it because you had a rough time. And so if you don't add that piece in there, you're bragging. But if I say how I didn't have a place to live, I was living on the street, and then I show you my new house, that way I'll somehow qualify my right to give you an accomplishment. And that is untrue. That is a lie. Anything that you do, that you work hard, that you're working to accomplish is yours. It is what you find. If it feeds you, it excites you, and you're proud, be that. Do that. Do not have to qualify everything with your paid dues struggle. Okay. Yeah. Be free to be who you are and celebrate the things you are without a but or because of this, And so I think that's what we have to get to too. It does not always include, because our stories in Black history come with that ever enduring struggle, and to see where somebody got after that ever enduring struggle. That's where that seniority in a lot of corporate environments comes from with our Black communities, where we feel like we have to pay these dues to get so far. But that's what it's doing. We don't have to believe that. We can change our narrative and write it for the way we want it to be.
Yeah. I love that.
I found this song.
Hold on, before you go, Liza, what did you call it? The dues paying struggle? What I just want to know exactly what you labeled that.
I forgot, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
The most popular post you see on social media where they will get attention and that credit. That's the difference. Is the one where if it comes with you, if I have to give you I shouldn't have to give you my backstory for me to qualify an excitement or a pleasure or a joy. It's just my joy. I am joyful. And so it should not have to come with a qualifier. And usually it is that dues, pain, and struggle, but I feel like it doesn't have, even if I had one or not, I don't have to use it as my qualifier to share what's good in my life.
I'm writing that down because when I go out speaking and I start talking about, folks gonna think I got a degree.
Do a case study. I encourage y'all to do your own case studies, and you'll see if you post it, you can be the same person and post two different things about what you have. If you bought a new home, just the picture of the new home and the sold sign, and then put it with the struggle that you had to get to that house, and you'll see the different encouragement, which again, and let me be clear too, people relate to struggle because we all have experiences. So that's not a negative thing that people may then tap into your journey because they relate to it. That may be what makes them excited because they see the struggle. But it's not, like you said, John, you should not have to shrink the accomplishment with a struggle to then somehow qualify you being able to have it. So that's the thing.
Right. And we're the only ones that have to do it. Like Black, we're the only ones that's got to, in order to be able to talk about it, there needs to be a struggle. Baby, you engaged, you need to be talking about them 12 men out there that treat you, dog you out, and your baby daddy who ain't paid child support and how he done stepped in. Like, it's got to be that or nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, April, you look like Adrian, you look like you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Well, the lyric was from Kendrick Lamar's Pride. It says, "I can't fake humble just because your ass is insecure." That's the actual line. I will find a lyric for everything, or a poem. A poem that I often give my clients for homework, especially my Black female clients, is "Ego Tripping" by Nikki Giovanni, because I think that poem encompasses what it means to like just talk your stuff. And I do that because most of the time we have not done it. Like we have shrunk, is that the word, shrunk ourselves to the point where we don't know how to speak confidently about ourselves. And I'm a firm believer, if you don't know how to encourage yourself, you will always be relying on other people to tell you how good you are. You got to believe it first. And where I am now personally, I've worked so hard to like who I am. I've worked so hard to believe in who I am. I can't shrink because that would be doing a disservice to all the years of work that I put in to get, and it has nothing to do with degrees. It has nothing to do with that. It's finally feeling comfortable in my skin and being okay with that. So how dare I shrink because I might offend you? No, that's not, your feelings are not mine to manage unless we got a client contract here. But it is not my responsibility to manage your feelings about how you respond to something that I say or that I do.
I love it. I love it. Adrian, you look like you wanted to say something.
I was just soaking it out. Y'all are just, y'all are good. I love it. I love it. I don't have anything. I'm doing.
I know. I feel like we have had church today. I'm just gonna go ahead and extend the invitation. If there will be one to come and receive tonight, we got you. Like first of all, let me, I know we're closing it down now, but I just want to thank you guys so very much. I love each and every one of you individually, but collectively, oh my, I just knew this was going to be good. And I'm just so thankful that you guys agreed to do this. I do have other questions. We're not going to get to them tonight. So we probably will do a part 2 in a couple of months. Like, this is not going to be an every month thing, but maybe about another quarter, before the holidays, maybe. But I just want to thank you. And I want to say to each of you individually, like, do the work. Y'all are doing the work. You're putting the work in, and it is not going unnoticed. And I appreciate what you bring to the table. I appreciate what you guys are doing in your own areas. But it's just they be talking about Black girl magic, baby. I am in the midst of it tonight. And so I am just so thankful and grateful. And I want to thank everybody who has come on, made comments, supported us, who have just, it's been a really good interaction. I'm so grateful that we were able to do this. So really quickly, I am going to give everybody an opportunity to tell people how they can get in contact with you, how they can follow you, how they can support your platform. Liza, hold on one second. Let me get to my bed. So Liza, we'll start with you first.
All right. Well, you can find me at my website, drelizabell.com, and then also on Instagram, dr.elizabell. I wanted to just highlight how what we're doing now, this in essence is what therapy is all about. It's really about you being able to sit with yourself, not about somebody dissecting you or tearing you apart or having all the answers for all of your life's woes. But it's really about being able to just sit down and have discussions that you probably have not been able to have because of all the things we talked about tonight that can kind of pile on and get in the way of just that intimate space for yourself. And so really, if you're considering it, hopefully tonight and answering questions is what you end up doing in those settings. It's just talking through some things that the lies you've told yourself for many years or things you didn't even know about yourself. I always tell people when I leave a call like this or a meeting like this is to say, if you had to be asked the question, who are you and how would you answer? That will tell you a lot about some of the work that you may want to do or what you want to build in your life. If you answer that question, and again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's about how you answer that question. You may want to build up more things about who you are, or you may want to examine those identities that show up when you answer that. And is that who you want to be? Is that all who you are? Or do you want more? Or are there less things that you want in your life? So just start with those questions. But again, my information is below, and I can help you locate resources, all kind of stuff. So just follow me. I try to give resources, information, therapy services. And so all of that, I'll be looking forward to talking to you.
Absolutely. Adrienne, thank you so much. Can you tell people how they can get in contact with you?
Yes, you can head over to the website, www.inspired.com, or on Instagram at inspire_counseling_LLC.
Any final thoughts to the group? Any final thoughts to everybody watching?
This was so good. And I really do hope we follow up with the second part because there was just some really good information and there's so much more to say. I know there are so many more questions that people have about mental health and about entrepreneurship and how the two kind of intersect. And I think that this information can help a lot of people. And so thank you again, Katrina, for having me and for creating a space like this. And you can call me anytime.
As I will. You didn't even need to say that, honey. That was a done deal. No, thank you so much. And I do not take our friendships for granted. Dr. Scott, tell people how they can get in touch with you.
You can find me at my website. You can get in touch with me. So a little bit what I do, inquire of my services. I host workshops, training, speak, all that good stuff. You can get in touch with me at draprilscott.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Dr. April Scott, where I just share some gems, things that I think about throughout the day, things that I've learned from therapy, things that I think are important. I have a couple of series from my 4 at 4 that I do on there. There's a series on imposter syndrome, on body image, on just, is it depression or sadness? I have a conversation on mom guilt that I highly encourage you all to take a listen to. You can find that on my Instagram page. As far as final thoughts, at the end of the day, remember who you are and whose you are. Whenever you start feeling out of alignment, go back to that. I like what Dr. Eliza said about going back to the basics. Figuring out what's important to you and be open to talking to somebody. If you ever have the question or the thought, I wonder if I need therapy. That's a sign you need it. Nobody ever wakes up and go, I wonder if I should go to the dentist, unless your tooth is hurting. So if you have the thought, if that's your body speaking to you, your body talks to you all the time. We just have to slow down enough to listen. So if there is any inkling in your spirit that's saying, I probably should talk to somebody right now or get in touch, reach out. Any of us can help you get connected to the right resources. But you don't have to go through this alone, whether you're an entrepreneur or whomever. You are not put on this earth to deal with life alone. So just get some help and be okay with that. We all need a little help sometimes. Get by with a little help from my friends. There's a song too, Joe Crocker. No, anyway. I got a song lyric for everything.
Listen, she got a song. Look, we got a game that we play on it's a whole nother conversation that we do the little game song. It's a whole situation on Zoom. But again, just really quickly, I am attorney Katrina Brown. I am the owner of Creative Mind Law. Listen, I specialize in business law, trademarks, copyrights, negotiation. I'm kind of a therapist on the low. If you really got some questions about business, I can really walk you through it. But really, I'm really about what I promote more than anything else is Black ownership. I'm all about Black ownership and making sure that we don't just have business, but that our business are legit. And so if you have any questions, comments, whatever, my information is below. You can definitely hit me up. We can do a consultation. But listen, it's time for us to do business the right way. And so I'm so excited to be able to host these talks and these platforms. And in a couple of months, I'm going to try to get these ladies back. And keep sending your questions in because I have like 10 more that somebody literally just DM that we may use for the next time. But we're excited about this. We want to thank you guys so much for showing up, being consistent, coming with us, riding with us, rocking with us. And thank you, ladies, again. Everybody, y'all have a good night. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Okay.